Hello and welcome to Comic Books and You. Today we are going to cover the 1965 Doom Patrol number 99, the later portion of the book, which is The Beast Boy. This is literally the introduction of the character, its first appearance. And as you know me, I do love my Doom Patrol, so I'm really happy that they did a reprint of this book to basically tie everything together for Beast World, which is the big event for November and December 2023. This is the later part of a two-parter. Basically, it's two books, two stories in one book, like they did most of the time back in those days, both of which featured the Doom Patrol. But here, the first one is them fighting against a mechanical genius, even though it looks like a bug there. You have to read the story. The second one is really the introduction of our intrepid teen, let's say. We won't spend too much time introducing all the characters here. We are now quite adept at recognizing the Doom Patrol here really in its original format with Robot Man, Negative Man, Larry Trainer, and Elastigirl. Not Elasti-Woman yet. Along with their currently not represented as the most evil person in the world, Chief Niles Calder. It's really the original incarnation here. It's nothing really fancy. Robot Man is the muscle of the team. Larry is the speed. Elastigirl is the operative brain, let's say. When they're out and about, she's the one who takes charge of the operation, more or less. While the Chief is the real brain of the operation, but he's generally far too focused on his own things to notice reality, like the fact that Garfield Logan is actually green. That's a bit odd for everybody else, but for him that was just normal. He was more confused about the fact that he could turn into an animal. And yes, we are introduced to Garfield Logan. We don't get his full name, I think, in this issue. I can't remember seeing it. And let's face it, we're really in the mid-60s here. He behaves like a stereotypical teen of the 1960s. Really, he's a cool cat that's not a square because he's got a fancy Beatles-like haircut and fancy clothes and Italian shoes. Everything there is really reminiscent of that era. The way he speaks as well, very reminiscent of what we would consider as cool in the 1960s. We do see him turn into a fair variety of animals in this book. But whenever he turns into an animal, he keeps his green face and his fancy haircut. The entire animal is not green like it is in modern Teen Titans stories and Titan stories. So we see a bit of a difference here in the character and evolution. Apparently, he gets bullied at school because he is green. I would have no idea why teenagers would pick on someone because he's got a weird skin color. That's entirely out of the ordinary to me. But here we actually don't get anything in regards to his origin. We are just introduced to the character, his power, and his behavior. The actual background on the character is something we learn more of in later books and in Teen Titans here and there. Our story begins as the Doom Patrol comes back from a mission to their secret headquarters, which is a huge building in the middle of town. So not that secret, I guess. And they notice that it's been infiltrated. First thing that they find out is an enormous cat paw print, which our friend Robot Man says looks like the MGM lion paw. Like I said, it's a bit dated. Later on, well, the panel after, Rita finds a giant feather in the bush and makes some horrible joke out of it as well. And Larry finds a large tuft of gorilla hair. The Chief actually found a piece of ivory from an elephant's tusk. So we've got all sorts of animals here. Things are weird. Robot Man creates a sketch of the man-bear pig, and the team quickly plans something to catch the culprit. They lay an ambush, and as the weird culprit gets in, Negative Man drops a giant gate behind him, and Robot Man detaches his arms to grab them, while Rita uses a giant cup to just restrain him. That's a good start. Pulling the cup up, they reveal Beast Boy, who's rather mad at them because he potentially ruined his haircut and his expensive Italian shoes. And in retaliation, he turns into a lion and bonks Robot Man. Yes, that is a terrible lion. Really, really bad. I know. We'll talk about that more later. Larry releases the negative spirit and tries to grab Beast Boy, who turns into a kangaroo and dodges and jumps and moves around until negative spirit is exhausted. Rita decides to take matters into her own hand and grabs the boy with her giant hand, and our intrepid teen turns himself into a fish and just slips away. Our weird heroes at that point decide to just combine the report in order to restrain him, and Beast Boy in response says that he wants to work with the Doom Patrol and he was doing this to get their attention. Niles, Larry, and Cliff are not really sold on the idea. They're ambivalent towards it, and Robot Man's the most against it. But Rita kind of shows compassion, which is what she's known for, and says that since they're all freaks, he has a place with them since he's a freak. Well, and our heroes finally decide to have Beast Boy participate in at least one mission as, an experimental thing. The next day, Beast Boy is leaving high school and a few other punk kids, his own words, make fun of him for his appearance until a girl actually offends him a little bit, as she does refuse to go out on a date with him, which makes him a little bit sad. But rather than moping around, Robot Man grabs his shoulder and tells him, "Yep, get in the car, boy. We're going to protect the parade." The parade itself is just a big party, but there's the crown jewel of the Duchy of Duesenberg that are on display. And a group of thieves show up with the intent to rob the armored car with all sorts of technological gadgets. They don't say if they work for anyone or anything. They could very well be working for General Immortus or the Brain. Who knows? One of the bad guys uses a gun that shoots oil, and all of our heroes just start slipping and sliding. But Beast Boy turns into an eagle and grabs the guy with the oil gun and dumps him into a toy cannon or one of the float cannons. Beast Boy then turns into an ape as another bandit tries to shoot him with an actual gun. But Negative Spirit just knocks the guy out for Beast Boy to grab him and chuck him into another display on a float. Robot Man kind of gets incapacitated by a foam gun. That's basically Robot Man's job in many of the early Doom Patrol books. He's doing the work there, but Beast Boy turns into a giant dog, wolf, something with a horrible face, and bites the last criminal on the arm and restrains him, saving the day. Back at the HQ, the Doom Patrol are debriefed by the chief, and Beast Boy toots his own horn quite a bit, and the rest of our team wonder if they should keep him around. And it was your responsibility as a reader to send a response to the Doom Patrol at national periodicals and say "rawr" if you wanted to keep the young man in the team, which was rather successful. It was a very good introduction of a character. It worked really well. It didn't need anything fancy. It was a bit unusual, but that's kind of what we expect from the Doom Patrol. And it's easy for kids to identify with a bullied teenager that's having some issues. We don't know yet that he's having problems at home. That's something we learn later. But Beast Boy is a character that would interest quite a few people and would even interest some of the gentler kind, since he does have that very modern look to him. I'm actually quite happy with this story. It's not the most imaginative, the most modern, but obviously we're dealing with the 1960s here, and it's something that is dated but still timeless, as a lot of the actions we see here, take out the fancy armored cars and things like that, could still be written today and would still work as a story. The cover for this issue mainly focuses on the villain of the month, Bugman, which is nothing like what it's represented here. Once you get into it, it's really all sorts of mechanical creatures built to look like bugs who fight the Doom Patrol, not an actual evil caterpillar. It doesn't really matter here, since for all intents and purposes, the bit we're interested in is that left side panel with the introduction of Beast Boy. It's not the strongest in terms of composition and look, in my opinion, but I do like that side panel. It does give us a lot of things to work with. The branding for Doom Patrol is also really good, and I really like the tagline at the top with the name of our heroes, World's Strangest Heroes. it would attract your attention. It would keep you entertained as a kid. Of course, the price of $4.99 here is a little bit different from the original 15 cents, really because it's a reprint here. But I do like, it's still the retro look to it. They haven't changed anything else on that cover. Generally, we go through all of the book here, but since we're really covering the later half here, we're really just going to look at this part. This was reprinted as a DC regular traditional floppy, nothing fancy of it on it. I would probably have gone with cardstock for the cover, just for preservation purposes. In the end, actually, I would say just use cardstock all the time rather than paper. Just looks and feels better. So the first bit here really as what splits the two stories together. There's a bit of ads and a comic, Willy and Dilly, which is absolutely terrible. European at this time in the 1960s were great at making one-page, half-page comics, but this they really didn't catch on with DC. Go look at Early Boulet Bill, go look at La Rubrique à Braque. You will see how crazy you can get with only one page. At the end of the book, we have another mini comic with Peeper Pup Tent Explorer, which is just about as bad. It's really nothing to write home about. Compared to the other previous early Doom Patrol books we've reviewed, this one here actually has a tier of products in the ads, which is just a step up. Things that generally cost $1, $2 for a single product, rather than the massive boxes and the big things we add in other early issues. We've got some Hawk modeling cars, a drag racer, slot racing car bodies, things that would be a little bit more expensive, a little bit more high-end, probably paid a little bit more in terms of the ads, would have been things kids could dream about while reading the book. We have another ad for Tyco model trains, which were really big at the time. You can read all and see all about the model train boom, which occurred in that era, which was really, really weird and led to many a broken fortune. But once again, this is some higher-end modeling and higher-end products that are being advertised. Bottom ad under that Tyco ad is just for something new brewing at DC. Jerry Lewis, Metamorpho, and the Teen Titans. This is a really nice ad. We get a little bit of everything we would want. Just a nice tagline to entice the reader. Also get a third page ad for Tomahawk with another strong tagline, Tomahawk Enemy Spy. That would have interested people who were interested in that character. DC used to make more of those historical comics that really dropped off after the 60s. Get a full page ad to order your monthly comic. I really hate that you'd have to cut out the coupon that's there because that would mess up the story that's behind. If it was a front flap, back flap ad, that would be better, but you know how it is. Back in those days, comics were absolutely disposable. The ad itself with Bob Hope and is a very 60s ways of talking at the top. I find it quite cringy, but it's still understandable. And you can see all the different products that were being advertised here for $1 per 10 issue. It was crazy. We also get a third of a page ad for a Tootsie Pop roll, things that are still around these days, but I've not seen ads for Tootsie Roll in the longest time. The last thing on there would be an ad for G.I. Joe, back when he was a Barbie with guns, the Alpine Troop and the Deep Sea Diver. Those were really cool, but once again, a very high-end kind of product compared to the disposable toys we had in the first issue of Doom Patrol, as an example. While this story really focuses on Beast Boy, we do see all of our heroes use their powers in various ways, including Robot Man detaching its arm, which is not a thing I had seen before. So it's fun to see that they're at least playing with the characters they already have when introducing a new one. We have a lot of shortcuts being used in the backgrounds in this one, however. Many unicolor background. We get some nice work during the parade. Every once in a while we get like that drape in the back there. But nothing that impresses me or that would compare to what we'd get in many other comics. It's not as good as it should be. various animal Beast Boy turn into are really weird. Look at that lion there. The front paws are hands and not cat paws. Not enough reference material probably was part of the cause here. I don't know if it was a desire to have all the animals more human-like by the creator. This is not something that is easy to get information on nowadays, unfortunately. When we look at Beast Boy, we really see that it's basically the kid that gets bullied and tries everything in his power to actually be cool so people can get off his back. It would also come at the same time as this is why his personality is so irritating to everyone else, because he reflects how he thinks people want him to act on top of his own insecurities, which plays a lot with the actual Doom Patrol teams that they keep exploring. So that's a mix of nice things. There are a few off-putting facial expression here. The Rita's face when she finds the feather is quite weird. We get a few from Beast Boy as well. One of his his teeth look like he's got shark teeth rather than human teeth. So there's a few things there, once again, that are a bit off-putting and that I find a little bit weird, but that might just be that 1960s art, which I'm not as used to in terms of American comic. The armored car looks terrible. It really looks like an old World War II Japanese armored car. So it's not the best design ever. Probably went with what resources they add and what reference material they add to do it. The Doom Patrol's car looks really nice. It looks really roomy, which I often come back to when we were reviewing comics recently. But in this case, the car being roomy makes perfect sense because cars in the 60s were big. There's a reason why a lot of people call them boats nowadays. Robot Man is also very expressive throughout this entire book, and it's quite interesting since he is more man than machine, more machine than man, I mean. So it's fun to see what they are playing with his character. I wrote this before Midnight's Edge and this morning, and I said this was a timely piece because it has a lot of references that are very timely. But Andre from Midnight's Edge cleared it up by saying you should probably say that it's dated instead. I think it's a mix of both here. This here is dated, yes, in what it's saying, but it also really reflects the time in which it was written. We've got references to Beatles fans. We got pure 1960s teen slang being used, and Robot Man also being very slang-tastic, let's say. As I said, Garfield really speaks like your mid-60s kid. You would see that in many TV shows and other comics of that era. A lot of Archie-style comics of the dates would have that kind of a feel to the discussions. It is rather funny to read in 2023. Another thing that is important, I think, in the Doom Patrol books is that the author keeps reminding us how strange and bizarre our heroes are every time they have the opportunity to do so. This is to remind us of the nature of the characters, but also to distinguish them from other superhero teams of the time. Beast Boy's schoolmate bullying him is not unusual. I mean, if there was a kid that was completely green at your school, he'd probably get in trouble, I would think. It's unfortunate, but that's how kids behave. Here, I don't think it's meant to represent racism or anything like that. I mean, in the end, Beast Boy is still a freak. They represent it pretty well here in Doom Patrol. And what's important is that you accept yourself if you're said freak. One other thing that's pretty interesting is that Beast Boy tries to prove himself to the Doom Patrol by fighting them and challenging them, rather than showing up and saying how cool and how great he is, which is what we would see from recent characters. Look at many of Marvel's most recent all new, all different characters, let's say, where they keep claiming that they're the best because they're the best, and basically end up sounding like complete sociopaths. One thing that's nice about Beast Boy is that he does want to use his power for good, and he understands that the Doom Patrol is probably his best bet at the time. I haven't checked precisely when the story where Beast Boy meets and tries to join the Teen Titans was written. If we look at the time frame here, I mean, once you're with the Doom Patrol and you start acting with them, going towards the Teen Titans because you can't really participate due to familial issues, let's say, was a good pivot for the character. Again, here we have a group of villains using technological gadgets and guns, because guns work. That's a thing that's par for the course for the Doom Patrol. I mean, the first story in this book is literally someone using robot insects to fight them. So that's nothing unusual, and those guys are actually very, very tame compared to many of the Doom Patrol's adversaries. We have a little bit of conflict between Larry and Cliff and the Chief in this issue, but not as much as what you sometimes get in other Doom Patrol stories. If we look at the first story on this book, you've got a lot more interaction between Cliff and Larry. Here we have just a few things. The focus is really on Beast Boy. It's not an unusual thing to have those mail-in campaigns at the end of various stories, at least back in the days. I mean, we've seen that for other things. I mean, that's what led to the unfortunate demise of the second Robin. We've had that for actually Beast Boy joining the Teen Titans as well. It was a way to interact with your readers back in the days when you didn't have social medias and you didn't have all of those elements. Characters like Beast Boy likely would have been an easy sell if you brought it to a publisher, but if you managed to, on top of it, say, hey, we've got 20,000 people writing "rawr" to us because they want Beast Boy on the team, much easier sell to the editor-in-chief, who will rubber stamp it at that point. Nowadays, we see something that's completely different, where the publishers are trying to push characters we actually hate or we actually despise or don't give any care about. And it leads to things like Kamala Khan having 17 different series and all of them getting canceled before resolution. This is a bit weird in terms of how it's set up. When you look at those older books, you basically have two stories, and within those stories, they're split into two sections as well. And they still manage to tell pretty much all stories in just that many pages. If you compare it to what we have right now, where you get a full floppy 24 pages and you barely have what it needs to make a coherent whole, it might be a lost art for a lot of creators. The first part of this story really gives us a setup and payoff in a very nice way. Beast Boy is very well introduced, his power is well defined, and his interaction with the rest of the Doom Patrol is pretty straightforward. The second part is a really nice basic superhero adventure where Beast Boy uses his powers to save the day, while the other patrollers also help. So it's not a one-man effort. Everybody kind of participates to bring a story together. It's pretty easy to understand why Beast Boy would become a fan favorite and a staple of DC from this issue onward. Beast Boy probably has more appearances than any of the Doom Patrol characters nowadays, and is an important part of the DC stable on television. Beast Boy's tragic part is something that is kept from us in this book, but we get all the other introduction stories and all the other good details in the Beast World Evolution book that was released the week before Doom Patrol 99, and it's pretty interesting to go through the first time Beast Boy joins or meets up with the Doom Patrol, with the Teen Titans, and his full backstory as the Tales of the Titan. Beast World Evolution is a great book to have as a Beast Boy fan. Really nice that this facsimile is easy to get now because the originals are getting to be pretty expensive. I've seen some for 4 digits, easily, in good condition. For anybody who's a Teen Titan fan, this is a great book to have about the early musing and the early time of the character. For Doom Patrol fan, this is a must-have book, so it's an easy recommend for me. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. I thank you for listening to me for so long. Please like, share, and subscribe. Keep on reading comics. Keep on enjoying them. I'll keep reviewing and analyzing them, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.